Alright, boys and girls, it's time for a final thought on clutches with Uncle Connie. First off, I'd like to thank 8 Balls for being kind enough to send me his master cylinder that I'm about to cut up, and Steve at SNL for sending me a slave. I tried to pay Steve, at least for the shipping, but he wouldn't have any part of it, so Steve, thank you very much. And 8 Balls, you're welcome to the 10 bucks. I could not have done this without the help of those two. And you know, I'm right, and gratefully so. Steve has been a great help, along with our other sponsors, of course. But you gotta respect Steve for being such a straight shooter all the time. Anyway, what have we learned? We learned why you can't shift. That's because you didn't install your shit right. And it's not just about that single measurement. It's about all the things that can affect that measurement. Yes, most aftermarket clutch manufacturers, and Monster is one of the ones that advertises this, that it's stock height. Okay, stock height means stock height. It doesn't mean you've got an aftermarket crank, which, as we know, can have some issues. It doesn't mean that you've got a thrust bearing bad, because it's 300 pounds here, folks. We're pushing almost 400 pounds by the time we get through the hydraulic multiplication of that piston. Forward, that's gonna push. Anybody that's ever had a 5-liter, especially in an F-150, and has had the torque converter balloon and push out, knows what kind of loads this puts on your thrust bearings. So there's that. So when you're taking that A measurement from the bell housing transmate surface to the fingers, make sure you reach in there and shove that thing in first, so you're working at a worst case. We've seen how taking out as little as an eighth, we're a 16th out of spec, folks, on that last video. We were a 16th out at 3/16, 1/8 to 1/16 is the target. We were at 3/16 and lost over half our clearance. And the clutch now drags instead of spins freely. That's how tight this is. And I know you guys want to go to the easy fix. And this is nothing against the guys, tick shift or Too Quick selling masters, but they're not a fix. And I hope that this proves to you the value of doing it right the first time. Because that's what this boils down to. We just want to bolt things in and go. We want to grab the cam that sounds the best and go. We want flashy part, which is great. Hey, you know what? If it looks good, performs equally, and costs the same, guess what? I'm going to pick the better looking part myself. That's a no-brainer. Performance isn't pretty. Not usually. I mean, look at me. But it is what it is. And you've got to make sure that you take the time and do it right. The more measurements you take, the more time you spend making sure that you run every little bolt down snug and everything square, right? And, you know, put the flywheel on, put the bell housing on, and bolt a dial indicator to the bell housing. Do it at 4 spots, and you know, then spin the flywheel. Use the crank pulley, spin the flywheel around. Check the run out of the flywheel flex plate, because for your automatic guys this holds 2. Check that. It's no different than the ProCut on-car brake lathe that I use, that trues the lathe to the hub. Now, you're not going to be able to do anything with the flywheel, really, because there's no way to turn those on the engine. But if that son bitch is out of spec, maybe you ought to check that and see. It's like, all right, well, it was out on the engine. Let's take this off. Let's take it someplace that has a lathe chuck that I could chuck this thing up in, spin it, and make sure it's true, so that I don't get 2,000 miles down the road and I can't shift. And nothing against you do it yourself, guys. You know I'm more than willing to help. And my reputation speaks for that, despite what my signature says. I do want to help you guys. I just don't like repeating myself. Take the time, do it right, and there is a value in paying reputable shops. And we've got some great shops sponsoring us, guys. Every region has at least one, some have more, but at least one just absolutely stellar shop. Alright? And there's only a couple of sponsors that I have any issue with, and most of that's more personal than with their products. And I'm not going to go into that. But 300 PSI, just to hold it, a little bit over that to apply it, because that's just how forces work. You always overshoot and then come back. Every single force. You always overshoot and come back. But that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. I'm going to do the math and put that down, but wow! I mean, if I had the camera on me when wow! Son, wow! It's very tight tolerances. The loosest in the entire drivetrain. It's very tight tolerances. And it's very easy to screw this up. Do very simple shit, very simple mistakes. But don't just throw parts at it. If you have a problem, I know some of you, this is your only car, and that's a whole nother topic. Modding your DD, just bad plan. Bad plan. Tear it down. Inspect things. Measure things. If you don't know how, ask. If you can't find it in a search, start a thread. Please don't PM me. But don't PM me 5 times expecting me to search. Just it's not going to happen. Unless I'm in a really good mood. Search, read, watch these videos, ask me some questions. I'm going to hold off on cutting this stuff up because I want some questions from you guys. Because once I cut this up, I either get more new parts from people or used parts, or we go back to basics. I can't work with cut up parts. So stop and think what you're doing. Stop and think what the effects are going through this system. You know, if your transmission's a little cockeyed, they sell adjustable dowel pins, right? To help center the transmission. That's another thing that you guys are probably missing. It's a pain in the butt to check. Pain in the butt to check. But it's just something to be cognizant of. You know, you put motor mounts in, you can change the angles, put a little flex, put a little bind in the system. That's why you're supposed to change all 3 mounts at once to keep things on the same plane, keep the tweaks out of there. WRP found that issue with input shaft bearings or whatever cracking in bell housings. Okay, so we know there's 4 other forces here at work, and we know we don't have a whole lot of room to play with. But that's where the issue is. The issue is in the setup of the hydraulic system and in the clutch. It is not in the parts themselves. It's how they are put together on the vehicle. They're not being checked. I'm now convinced of that. And hopefully, through all of this, you're convinced of it too.